Thank you for joining us this morning and starting your Monday morning with us. Welcome to Breakfast Central. As always, for the next 2 hours, we have some of the major conversations happening here in Nigeria to share with you. And as always, we always encourage you to be a part of our conversations this morning by simply following us on our social media platforms at News Central TV. And if you're watching us on YouTube from anywhere in the world, do remember that you could also leave a comment in the YouTube section. Much later, the phone lines will be open, and it's also important that you call in and share your thoughts on any of the conversations that we're having this morning. Welcome to the new week, and just before we start, as always, we like to share with you some of our lead stories that happened over the weekend. I am Osaogie Ogbonwa. I'm going to be starting with the release that was put out, I believe, on Saturday by FIJ. Of course, you know, Fisayo Sheyombo shared that link where an investigative report had been carried out, an investigation had been carried out, and which showed that Ayomide Adeleye, who's a young man who confessed sometime in 2024 to killing Christiana Idowu. If you remember a couple of months ago when that story went viral, sometime in September, I believe, of 2024. The FIJ's investigation revealed, according to them, that Ayomide Adeleye was not in any of Nigeria's correctional facilities as he was meant to be. If you remember, after the investigation, he was asked to be remanded in prison custody while the DPP, Department of Directorate of Public Prosecutions, carried out its work. He was said to be remanded in either Ikoyi prisons or Kirikiri, but the FIJ's investigative report, eventually found out that he was in neither of them. They had reached out to the Nigerian Correctional Service, and both, a person that they spoke with said they had no idea who that person was, and there was nobody with that name in the Nigerian Correctional Service or in Nigeria's prisons generally. When that story broke, of course, there was a response from Benjamin Hundeyin, who, of course, tried to counter it, with, a little back and forth argument, basically saying that we can confirm that he was charged with murder and was remanded for the same offense. He also says it's also a fact that another person bearing the same name was remanded for a different offense and was released in April 2024, long before Ayomide was we're talking about now committed his offense. He goes on to say an outfit that prides itself on investigation should live up to its name, relied on sources rather than the spokesman of the correctional service will land you in that kind of misinformation. But eventually, there was also a rebuttal by Ojukwu, Justin Daniel, which of course, went back and forth with Benjamin Hundeyin, and eventually they agreed that they were going to carry out proper investigations and figure out exactly what is wrong. So where it currently is basically that the police is not necessarily certain that he is still in the correctional center. They are claiming that they've done the work that they should have done, which is, of course, arresting the suspect and taking him to court. That after that, that's not necessarily police business. And so whatever happens, right after that point is not necessarily, the police's fault if he is no longer there. But from what the FIJ's investigation showed, this person, this individual, is not in any of the correctional centers. And of course, Benjamin Hundeyin ended up by saying, well, why don't we wait until his next court date, and then if he doesn't show up in court, then we'll know exactly what the problem is, which is not satisfactory to a lot of people, because that doesn't confirm or deny whether this person truly is in any of Nigeria's correctional centers. And if you remember a couple of months ago in 2024, one of the biggest stories, sadly, was the story from Idris Okuneye Bobrisky when that leaked voice note was posted by, another social media influencer, which revealed, according to the voice note, that Idris Okuneye, or Bobrisky as is popularly known, didn't spend time in jail like he was meant to spend time in jail. He allegedly said that, most of the time that he was meant to be in jail, he was somewhere else. He had a rented apartment someplace where he was kept. And so it's not necessarily shocking, or breaking news to many Nigerians to hear of the possibility that a person who was meant to be remanded in custody is not there, and whatever Benjamin Hundeyin is doing, is really just, painting, this pig with makeup. It's not shocking news. And so we're hoping that there is further investigations and that we can actually confirm whether this person who confessed to, at least, in that video, confessed to killing Christiana, truly has been remanded in prison custody or not. Olive?
I do think that, it's an indictment on Nigeria's correctional facility, and I'm hoping that there's a thorough investigation that is being carried out, because what it does, or what this does, is make a mockery of the system. Not just the correctional facility, our entire justice system. It makes a total mockery of it all. Now, you made reference to Idris Okuneye. There have been other scenarios, of people where...
It's just the most recent?
Yes,
I think everybody
it's just
remember.
The most recent. And another person who is supposedly behind, supposedly within the correctional facility currently, is Speed Darlington, popularly known as, we popularly know him as Speed Darlington, right? Akpi. Yesterday, in the war of words between Chief Priest, Cubana Chief Priest, and Burna Boy, he's flexed muscles to say that he would bring Speed Darlington out of prison today to show that he has influence. That, again, is also an indictment on the correctional facility, you know? It's saying that we don't have systems and structures, and this is not me saying Speed Darlington should be held back or he should be released. I really don't care. I'm not personally involved. I think that the law should take its course.
It is the audacity,
but it's the audacity for you to say that, you're going to show that connection and water, really. So it's, again, the correctional facility needs to speak up for itself and show proof. If that man was charged to court, there certainly was a charge sheet. Share the sheet in the interest of, in the public interest and interest of vulnerability and, accountability. It's not a situation of saying that it's there are scenarios where they will say for public security and public safety, they don't want to divulge information. You should divulge information because Nigerians have lost trust in that system. And I do hope that some investigation is being done, because it would be a heartbreaking thing to find out that that man truly is not behind bars, because it would be that the death of Christiana Idowu was in vain, and all the other women who have unfortunately lost their lives to men like these who feel like they have the upper hand and can just wake up one day and take your life. And again,
highlights the weakness in Nigeria's institutions, and how persons with some level of influence, financial influence, can always beat that system. And, these things are right there in your face. It's not even hidden. They're just right there in your face. Anybody who tries to deny it is really just being delusional. They are right there in your face. And I'm happy that you cited the Gubernatorial Chief Priest statement, because that is one very, very clear example that should be pointed out.
You see all of a sudden we are coming for you tomorrow.
It's left to the police, and, whoever else in the court now to let us know whether they truly will, bend to the influence that Cubana Chief Priest,
claims
really has
to have
or not. All right. Still talking about the police. There's another incident that occurred in River State in Port Harcourt, where a woman alleged that she was very brutally brutalized by policemen in River State, Port Harcourt. She claims that she committed no offense. She was at a checkpoint, she had flashlights in her face, and, they had asked her to slow down or to stop, and then she had complained about the lights being, pointed in her face, and, then she was repeatedly assaulted by the police. That's what she claims. There's been no proper response yet from the Nigerian police, to either confirm or deny what exactly happened in this particular situation. But, I don't know that, there needs to be a lot of explanation. What we clearly see here is somebody that is bleeding, which means that she clearly was, attacked somehow, some way. What we do not know yet if it is whether she was truly assaulted by the police, like she claims, or if there was, some altercation, that needs to be explained properly that led to what exactly is going on here. But again, these things highlight the complete flaws in the system that we run. And of course, when we talk about reforming the Nigerian police, how we've actually taken 0 steps forward when, in the whole conversations concerning reforming the Nigerian police, almost no steps. There's not a new Nigerian police force. There's not a better trained Nigerian police force. It's pretty much the same things that we've always been seeing. And what we have instead is spokespersons. Yes, every now and then they claim that, the police officers who commit these, atrocities have been arrested and, are being investigated and whatnot. But it eventually leads nowhere. It doesn't lead to any improvement in, the way that police treat the average Nigerian.
Right. So 2 things I want to highlight. The fact that, first of all, in her cry, she doesn't just mention the police, but she also mentions very dark man. And why that sort of makes me feel some type of way, again, it highlights the fact that there's a feeling that just mentioning the police might not get her the justice that she wants, that she has to get this young man to be able to lend his voice for people to be able to then, for the police to then pay attention to her. Again, another indictment on Nigeria's police on the fact that there's so much work that they need to do. The process of arresting and stopping and searching, yes, it is a right enshrined or a right granted to the police in the Police Rights Act, but we can't deny the fact that it's been done in the most inhumane way. Over the course of the years, a number of us can talk about how we can express how we've seen ways in which the police have done their stop and search in ways that can trigger you. Now, how do you tell someone to stop and you are pointing torchlight in their eyes? Especially in this time when you don't know if the person is a police or you don't know if there's a thief. There have been incidences where people who claim to be the Nigerian police have done stop and searches that would lead to people being robbed or whatever it is. So for what it's worth, I hope that that video doesn't just end there, that there is an investigation that leads to a logical conclusion. In the comment section, I saw people saying, no, I don't believe you, what have you done? And I want to say that people who say things like that, those are part of the people that are apologists for those who come out to cry about domestic violence. If they're asking for evidence, if she had made a video and they beat her more, or they seized and broke her phone, it's the same people that would come out to say, why were you making a video? I think we should move past trying to make a blame. When there's an allegation of this magnitude, investigations should be carried out. And the police, again, is, they're in the news, and I'm hoping that it doesn't just end there as a video. Let's move to our final story from the weekend. Government Okpolo's testimony. I mean, you might want to talk about it. Yesterday was Sunday, a day of rejoicing and celebration, people thanking God for his wonderful work. And the governor of Edo State, your governor, took to the pulpit to give a wonderful testimony in celebration of God's work. You might want to tell us.
So I think we'll probably just play, the video so we can hear exactly what was said. And this is what sparked, controversy across social media yesterday.
He uses the foolish things, the things that are at disadvantage, to prove that he is God all by himself.
What was I having? What God cannot do does not exist.
Yeah, I'm not sure what exactly the governor was saying there. What was I having? I don't get it. I don't get it. Maybe he's shy. Maybe he's not very good with public speaking. Maybe that's why he couldn't call out the numbers when he was reading out his budget. He has stage fright. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he didn't make a lot of sense in that in what
that's his response. We didn't see the full clip.
Yes, but I think the reaction to this, of course, you can see there was Aneni saying God will not be mocked. There was a time when mighty men of God will speak truth to power. Today, pastors use their putrefying platforms to celebrate society's perversions. A rigged election is what your God is using to prove his divinity. God will not be mocked, Pastor Jerry, and responding to what popularly known Pastor Jerry. Yes. So for the longest time, there's been criticism as to how the Nigerian church, and religious bodies, how they respond, and the stance that they take, with regards to politicians. People have always called them out, every now and then. And this is no different, because there's a lot of people who feel that the Edo State elections were not free, fair, and credible as, they claim. And that, in situations like this, the church, really should not be taking sides with or standing side by side with the person who they believe, won the election fraudulently. But, so the thing is, there are two sides. There's those who can say that, well, INEC has declared him winner, the courts have declared him winner, so that, there's nothing we're going to have to pray with him, and we'll praise with him. So it's both sides.
My question is, what happens? So on the day when they're saying, if you have testimony, come forward, and people are rushing to the front, then the governor, one day, is rushing to the front, then the pastor in charge will say, every other person stay for testimony, but you go back.
No, not exactly.
I'm just joking. So I see the sentiment.
There's
honestly.
a thin line, yeah.
And I completely see that. I see how sensitive it is in the sense that Nigerians for the longest time have argued that we haven't had what can be considered a free, fair, and credible election, right? Many would say that the 1992 elections, yeah, is it 1992? No, not 1992. What's the election that... 1990. The June 12 elections, thank you. So many would argue that might have been the freest that we have had as a country. But the unfortunate scenario here is what we do see that is that it's very difficult for religion to be separated from politics in this day and age. Politicians oftentimes are given very exalted positions. They are given the pulpit to talk, and many people criticize that. Oftentimes, people would say that religion should not be mixed with politics. I disagree. I do think that religious leaders can, should be able to speak up, but what they should not do is, flower the truth. They should be able to speak truth to power.
True.
I understand it's a very complicated case here. I'm hoping that, there might be a response to this, that, Pastor Jerry Eze has a response to this, especially because it was a highly contested election, an election that was highly criticized because of all the allegations of bribery, violence, and all the likes. But then again, let's not be deceived, like Oseaneni said, God cannot be mocked.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
All right, we have a number of stories to look at. These are just to kickstart the show and to let you know what's been trending over the course of the weekend. But let's share with you the stories we'll be looking at this morning before we bring you breakfast headlines. Bandits kill Miyetti Allah leader, abduct 3 others. There was a gunfire that ensued after this. And we'll be analyzing Nigeria's economic downturn as the new year begins. It's January the 6th, I believe, or the January the 6th, yes. Tanker fire kills several persons, raises properties in Delta State. Austin as will bring us more update there. Marketers eye loading of petrol from Warri refinery in February. That looks like some good news. We review the newspaper front pages as we do every morning. All these and more on Breakfast Central. And now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Now let's begin breakfast headlines by telling you that oil marketers have started lifting diesel and kerosene from the Warri Refinery and Petrochemical Company, which resumed operations on the 30th of December 2024 under the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Marketers have confirmed that while the plant is operational, only one of its 3 units is functioning, producing diesel, kerosene, and gas. Premium motor spirit is not yet being produced, but marketers anticipate loading petrol and cooking gas by February. The Delta State Chairman of IPMAN, Harry Okenini, noted that the refinery is not at full capacity, but has commenced skeletal activities. Meanwhile, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has launched a series of operations across Nigeria, resulting in major arrests and drug seizures to kick off 2025. On the 1st of January, NDLEA arrested Aishat Elediye, a 61-year-old alleged drug kingpin, in her mansion in Lagos, known as Iyaruka. She had been on the wanted list for leading a drug cartel in Mushin. Her arrest followed the interception of a truck carrying 1,540 kilograms of cannabis. In another operation, U.S.-trained filmmaker Emeka Mbadiwe was apprehended in Lagos after his associate was caught with 17.3 kilograms of cannabis. Additional raids across Kwara, Kano, and River States yielded seizures of drug-laced cupcakes, tramadol, and 316,800 bottles of codeine-based syrup. Now, still on drug trafficking, 3 Nigerian women have been freed after spending 10 months in jail in Saudi Arabia for drug trafficking. The women, Hadiza Abba, Fatima Umate Mala, and Fatima Kanai, were arrested on March 5, 2024 at the Prince Mohammed bin Abdulaziz International Airport in Medina, following the arrest of 2 Nigerians with 1.69 kilograms of cocaine. They were suspected of aiding narcotics trafficking. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed their release on Sunday, emphasizing the role of diplomatic efforts in securing their acquittal. The women have been handed over to the Nigerian consulate in Jeddah, where they were received by Ambassador Mazum Nayaya. They are now undergoing immigration processing for their return to Nigeria to reunite with their families. And to security matters, the Commissioner of Police in Delta State, CP Olufemi Abaniwanda, has ordered the immediate rearrest of 2 escaped suspects of Vakpuraye Jubome, aka Rogers, and Debbie. This follows their escape from police custody at the Ovian Alaja police station. The police commissioner has also summoned the divisional police officer, CSP Bulus Musa, and his team for an investigation into the incident. The escape, which occurred on the 4th of January 2025, has sparked outrage in the Alaja community, which has petitioned the Inspector General of Police for swift action. Jubome and Debbie were initially apprehended on December 31, 2024, after a rise in criminal activity. Their escape has raised concerns about police negligence and the safety of the community. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Let's move back now to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osita Okechukwu.
It's been barely a year and 8 months since President Tinubu was sworn in as the president of the most populous black nation. Yet, many Nigerians, including supporters of the APC, have said that they cannot account for positive growth and improvement. The cost of food has continued to triple. Transportation is on the rise as the Yuletide season exposed economic hardship for commuters and transporters. In contrast to the ruling APC assertion of an improved economy, Mr. Peter Gregory Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in Nigeria's 2023 election, stated during a press briefing last week that the country requires selfless leadership.
Although the APC has admitted that the economic reforms embarked on by the administration of President Bola Tinubu have increased the economic hardship on Nigerians, they are positive that it will bring lasting hope to citizens. Now, just in case you're wondering how the cost of living is affecting basic food items and household items, you know, they both have risen from 50 to 100%. The naira has lost value. 100 naira is a new 20 naira, and 1,000 naira is a new 500 naira. Now, we're going to be joined to x-ray the current reforms and the effect on fellow Nigerians, for those who are calling for an end to the economic hardship. We're going to be joined in a bit by the vocal member of the ruling All Progressive Congress and founder and director of VON, Mr. Osita Okechukwu. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Morning.
Great to have you join us. I want, your first of all, your response, generally to those who have criticized the current administration for, its reforms, and basically said that the government has plunged Nigeria deeper into economic chaos without no actual plan on how to bring Nigeria out of where it currently is. The value of the currency, the cost of living for the average Nigerian, the ease of doing business, and all of that. It doesn't seem, according to what people are saying, it doesn't seem like the current administration really does have, a plan on fixing Nigeria's economy. What will your response be?
Thank you very much. Let me start by acknowledging that there is hardship in the country. Mr. President as well admits that there is hardship in the country. On his plan, he had marshaled out plan. Luckily, some are coming to fruition. The rain did not start beating us today. It started far back in 1986 when Nigeria adopted the Structural Adjustment Program, where its mantra was that the government had no business in business. But when we inherited all those back years, what President Tinubu did was that he looked into the subsidy and said between 2005 and 2023, he had got over $70 billion. And he said, how do we save that fund so that we can plow it into critical infrastructure, both physical and social? And he decided his own parameters, one of which is diversification of the economy, the issue of encouraging electric vehicles, the CNG, compressed natural gas vehicles, to lessen the dependence on PMS, or petroleum motor spirit. Luckily for our regime, the coming on board of Dangote Refinery and that of Morocco Refinery, Warri, that we embarked on since the APC came to government in 2015 is also coming to fruition. So on a daily basis, we are seeing the market forces taking over the arena. That in the few months ahead, we might see the pump price of petroleum coming down to about 500 naira per liter. And then when that is done, the high cost of food prices will follow, because it's been agreed that PMS and energy cost is at the root of the high inflation. That in fact the inflation we have is what is called a cost push inflation. So if a vital element or item like the petroleum motor spirits and diesel and other derivatives, if their price comes low, naturally it will also bring down those prices it escalated. I think Mr. President is on course along that line. And don't forget as well that he had looked into the farmers' sellers crisis and said the immediate solution he could procure is to create the livestock ministry. And that livestock ministry luckily had attracted some foreign investors from across the globe, from Saudi Arabia, about $2.something billion, Brazil. I also understand that the Czech Republic is also trying to go into partnership on because they have enormous ranch companies, manufacturing companies that could install a ranch that could contain 10,000 cattle.
Yep.
And it means that when we have those ranches across the country, because about 70 states are also donated land for that, then it means
Mr. Okechukwu, I don't know that, you know, sorry to butt in. I'm not certain, I'm not sure if, you know, this Saudi plan, is like you're describing it, in that Saudi Arabia is coming to invest in ranching, and that's why we needed a Ministry of Livestock. If you remember, it was heavily criticized, that could have really been under the Ministry of Agriculture. We didn't need a Ministry of Livestock. And I don't know that this Saudi plan, like you've said, is the exact way that it is, or the way that you're promoting it. And also, we're talking about 500 naira per liter. What do we know is the current cost of production of petrol in Nigeria? I mean, how isn't it wishful thinking, expecting that the petrol price will drop to 500 naira per liter? We don't even know what the current cost of production is. What market forces are we talking about that are going to bring it down to 500 naira per liter?
My brother, I thought that your humble question is what is the APC leadership led by President Bola Tinubu, GCFR? What are we doing to contain the hardship in the country? And I'm trying to lay it down by telling you that singling out the livestock ministry was to address the headers farmers crisis that have made some farmers to go out of their farms, and that it's going to contain the cattle that ravage crop farming. Not only that it's going to do so, that the advantages it has is that it's going to produce more meat, it's going to produce more milk, and you are challenging the details whether it could have been a Ministry of Agriculture. That is not the issue today. The issue is, what is the intent of President Bola Tinubu in establishing the livestock ministry? I think that should be what we concern ourselves with, and what is the outcome or likely outcome. That's what I'm saying. One of the things you talked about, the crash of the naira per dollar, and I'm saying that one of the solutions to contain the price of naira per dollar is also to contain food imports, because immediately today, with that Dangote refinery and Warri and Porako coming on stream, there might be no need for importation of refined petroleum products that have consumed us over $17 billion. And you're saying these are not solutions. Unless you are being theoretical. I'm trying to let you know that we are concerned about the hardship in the country, and we're also affected. And I'm going further to tell you as well that the diversification of the economy will lead to more hands, more food on the table of Nigerians. We're not happy that some families in the country could not eat 3 square meals a day. Nobody is happy about that. So, but if you say the solutions we're advancing is because the livestock department is not expanded in the Ministry of Agriculture, I think that's another question. And remember as well that there have been clamor for restructuring of the country into regions. And President Bola Tinubu said, why don't he create, in tandem with the National Assembly, regional geopolitical zone divisions, like the Northwest zone, the Northeast zone, the Southeast Geopolitical Zone Development Commission. And he had budgeted not less than $400 billion for each of these commissions. The only one that is not established has its money docked in what is called service-wide votes. Immediately it is established, they will bring it on board. And these are issues that if for instance, the Southeast Development Commission, the region where I come from, every eye in that region today is looking at what the commission is going to do with the $400 billion. And we said it's a welcome development. A lot of people have started packaging some projects, proposal, to give the chairman of the commission, former Minister of Labor, Honorable Emeka Wogu, and the MD, Dr. Mark Okoye, other executive directors like Sylvester Okokwo, like Honorable Tonye Okechukwu, Right Honorable Stanley Hejiroka. We are placing them on the, Tinubu has placed them on the eyes of the public to know what they will do with the funds that will be allocated to them to transform the Southeast region and other regions of the country by addressing infrastructure deficit. Don't forget as well that even the critics of President Tinubu, they also agree that he's doling out more funds to states through the Federal Account Allocation Committee, FAC. And some of the state governors
I want us to
be more prudent in managing that resource. And he had also made an attempt through the Supreme Court to create financial autonomy for the local government council across the country. What is the intendment of the financial autonomy to local councils? The intendment is to take the money down to the people, to oversee their councillors. Gone are the days, there was a time I went to home for weekend, and my uncle, the eldest person in my family, a retired headmaster, he said, Osita, I don't know what you are doing in Abuja. When you have time on Saturday, I will take you somewhere. When I picked him up, we went there. He was showing me an upstairs spot, I said, who owns it? He said, that councillor. That is just in office for less than 2 years. Right. And we don't know what you are doing in Abuja.
Okay, so I think
we are crossing to this place.
All right, can you hold on?
The convent was dilapidated. That money for that convent
Mr. Okechukwu, can you hear us?
Anywhere except in that upstairs being built. Yes, Mom. Yes, my sister.
Okay, I think one thing that, yes, we can agree, the fact that the local government autonomy is being pushed, it's a great move. I want us to quickly go back to something you had mentioned at the start of this conversation. You made reference to CNG. I wanted to ask you, how well it's been accepted and how soon you think, or how practical you think it is in curbing the over-reliance we have on petrol, and maybe to ask if you also have done the conversion.
I told you that back in 1986, the Nigerian state adopted the structural adjustment program. And when this program was adopted in 1986, there were professors, the academia in the country, Professor Bodoni Made, Professor Noli, Ikenna Nzimiro, Kadeke, they all stood up against it. They said it's going to pauperize the people and going to deprive the people of the benefits that the government confers. That had come to be, unfortunately. How do you amend it? Because Nigeria had adopted it as a philosophical position. You cannot judge decisions no matter how smart you are as a governor or president. You must find a way to come around it. And what is President Tinubu doing? That's what I'm saying. That what he's doing today, nobody, even the traducers of Mr. President, could say that Bola Tinubu doesn't mean well, or he's not a man of the people, or that he's not courageous enough to take bold decisions in the way he finds it. If you ask me, the only thing I keep begging President Tinubu is that in the budget of about 50 billion trillion, that about 16 is for debt servicing. And I'm saying, revert back to the debt, what the then President Obasanjo did, the process that the current president of WTO, Dr. Ngozi Uwela, did, place the debts under searchlight, let it be re-examined to know which ones are genuine debts and which ones are not, and plead for cancellation, so that we could have more money on the table to pursue those their programs. Yeah, the CLG had not advanced the way he wanted.
All right, Mr. Okechukwu.
But a few days ago, President Tinubu was in the southeast region, and he promised them that he's going to bring the gas infrastructure, because the people pointed out that in the western corridor, there is a standard gauge rail line. There's none in the eastern corridor. In the western corridor, there is a gas infrastructure pipeline. There's none here, and he promised he's going to do so.
All
so
right, Mr. Okechukwu, we need to wrap up the conversation. You know, these promises that you're mentioning, we hope that he's able to fulfill them in the next 2 years. He has only 2 years left in his administration, pending a re-election or not. So hopefully, he's able to fulfill these promises in the next 2 years. There's many arguments against his economic policies so far, but we don't have time to expatiate on them. Thank you very much for joining us this morning and for your time. All right.
What I know.
All right, let's take the conversation elsewhere. A really sad incident occurred over the weekend in Katsina State, where a group of suspected bandits during the late hours of Saturday night killed the Katsina State Acting Chairman of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, Alhaji Amadu Surajo, and 2 others at May Rana village in Kusala local government area of the state. Now, during the investigation, it was discovered that the assailants also abducted 2 of the deceased wives and his daughter, who is a university student.
Members of the community were said to have been injured by the terrorists during the attack. Now, this has raised concerns regarding the safety and security of Nigerians living in the northern region, despite the reported successes of the Nigerian military force. To further discuss the recent developments is someone with vast experience in both internal security, regional, and United Nations operations. He's a student at the Postgraduate School Nigeria Defense Academy, NDA. He's a fellow War College from Army War College, Nigeria, and a member of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations. A security analyst and communication strategist. We're joined this morning by Breakfast Central, on Breakfast Central by retired Colonel Mohammed Dole. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
All right, seems we have a slight issue with the connection there with Colonel Mohammed Dole, but of course, he is going to be joining us to expand the conversation on security currently in Nigeria. The presence still of bandits, as they are being called, and I think we've not been able to properly identify these persons, and simply calling them bandits is not good enough. Same way we had for a long time unknown gunmen. that Nigerian government was not able to properly identify, which of course, is a huge failure on its part, to be able to properly identify who these people are. Unknown gunmen means absolutely nothing. It means that you have a society where people are just running around fully armed with, assault rifles, and you're not able to identify who, they are, where they're coming from, where they get their weapons from, or at least if they have actual motives. Same way we, of course, now have bandits. Analysts in the past have said that these persons may be part of, the Boko Haram group, the ISWAP group, and many other terror groups, maybe even Lakurawa groups in northern Nigeria. And simply calling them, the blanket name of bandits, doesn't help us in any way. Exactly.
Right. I mean, and also it's a very sad incident. The killing, the reports of how the killing occurred were also very sad. I mean, hearing how they stormed his I mean, in one of the reports I had read, they stormed his house, shot him, and then kidnapped his wives. At some point, the police was alerted. The police went there. They chased after them, I think causing them to leave behind one vehicle and one of his wives. And there was an exchange of gunfire. Reports have it that he wasn't the only one that was killed, that there were, I think, 2 other people who were killed alongside during the exchange of gunfire. Again, this highlights a strong challenge with insecurity. Today is the 6th of January. In another 9 days, we should be celebrating Armed Forces Remembrance Day, talking about, and this also highlights the war that Nigeria has had against insecurity, our members of armed forces and the sacrifices they've had to make. But how far have we come? Can we start to say that, do they have enough? Do they have enough intelligence to be able to help in the fight against insecurity? Do they have enough ammunition? Have we been able to block all the loopholes in terms of how porous our borders are? Every other day we're talking about ransom last year.
Yeah.
Last year, we're in the new year. Last year, the NBS released a damning report about how much was paid for ransom. And we all know what those monies were used for. The monies were not invested in the bank or put in a mutual money fund. These monies were used most likely to get more weapons to further, facilitate the insecurity. There have been arguments about how a number of this is controlled and sponsored. Who are these sponsors? The terrorist sponsors were named. We had a list mentioned. I mean, we've had several times when they would name those who are sponsors of terrorists. What is being done? Is it just to name names? No investigation is being carried out. So some would argue that what we have is a dishonest fight against insecurity. We're not being completely honest with ourselves, because the government can the government clearly say that they do not know, where these people are. They don't know where they're located.
Yeah.
They don't know the people who are behind these moves. So I think these are the things that Nigerians look at and wonder if we're really being honest about our fight against insecurity.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, to be fair, also important to give kudos to the, Nigerian government for the wins that they have recorded in the last couple of years. You can say that, well, we've had a complete removal of bomb blasts in our news, updates. We don't hear about, those anymore. Kidnappings may not be happening as much as they used to happen before. But of course, it doesn't mean that these things are not still present. They still happen, maybe not in the numbers as before. The NBS report, like you mentioned, was very shocking to Nigerians. It reported more than 2 trillion naira in ransom paid in 2024, which was, completely mind-blowing. What efforts do we still need to make? Can we properly identify these people that we call bandits? Have we been able to stop the inflow of weapons into Nigeria, through our porous borders? Do we even have a proper conversation on those porous borders? Because that's been the reality for decades. And administration after administration, we do not see that there is any actual conversation, maybe in the National Assembly, as to what exactly are we doing with these porous borders, and what are we, in what ways exactly
to tighten the borders?
Those borders.
Is it a possibility that we can envisage?
Yeah. Do we have the resources even? Would it require employing more people in Nigerian immigration or the Nigerian police force? Would it require employing more people in the NSCDC? I mean, there's huge questions that need to be answered, and if we do not have the resources, in what way are we redefining our security budget every year to accommodate these new challenges and the fact that we need to clean up our borders? So remember when the budget figures were put out, and I was asking back then that In what way are we doing things different? In what way is this 2025 budget going to be more effective than 2024's budget, was? In what way are we maybe redefining the way that our budgets are being drawn for security and for healthcare and for education and for infrastructure to show that we are, planning to do things different this time, that we'll be tackling different aspects of the challenges that we have, that we'll be fixing our borders if we have to, that we'll be funding a different part of our security agencies or funding it in a different, pathway to ensure that we do things different. This, I believe the question needs to be answered, because if you continue to do the same thing, you had a 600 billion naira budget last year, now you have a 1 trillion naira budget, but it's pretty much the same things that you are funding. You are buying equipment, nothing is going to change.
Yes,
what is the different approach that we're having towards security?
That's a very valid point you raised. 4.9 trillion naira in our budget this year allocated to defense, the highest budgetary allocation this year as well as last year. So if we're allocating more money, some would say that it's not about allocating money, it's how is this money being disbursed, how is it being used? That maybe we should check within, because like you said, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So maybe the goal should be to check and see what can we do differently, what areas, can we make amends? And yes, just to say that we've made progress. We're not where we are, but there's still so much work to be done.
Absolutely.
Right? In completely fighting the war against terrorism, against insecurity, a huge part would be to go back and investigate the people who have been alleged to be sponsors of terrorism in Nigeria. Those whose names made the list, invite them for questioning. Let there be an investigation. Let it not just be a situation that it's like dust that just settles, and after a while everybody completely moves on from this. We need to have proper questions, and arrests need to be made if necessary.
Yeah. All right.
We now head to Delta State, Ika local government area, but to be precise, where we have unfortunate reports about a tanker explosion that has killed several persons. We're not quite sure what the number is, as that is still sketchy. Properties were razed, including banks and public buildings. Let's pause, before we get to the main story, as we have our correspondent. If you can see the clips, the fire is still raging. We do have our correspondent right there to give us an update of what the gory incident is and where we are so far. Austin Azu, good morning. What's going on? Where exactly are you and what's going on there?
Good morning. We are currently here at the scene of the event where the tanker fell yesterday. And from my left-hand side, you can see that the burnt tanker is still lying down there. And of course, it's causing some kind of gridlock at the moment. But we heard that by 8 o'clock this morning, the deputy governor will be coming to inspect this scene this morning. However, you can actually see some damaged houses. Houses were burnt down. And some of them have been lamenting, the occupants of these buildings and those who are trading here have been lamenting profusely, counting their losses already. These are the burnt vehicles that were stationed here yesterday. And of course, at this particular spot here, you can see that this place is littered. And of course, this is where someone was burnt to ashes at this particular spot here. And you can see the buildings already, some of them are still bringing out smoke to tell you the volume of destruction that occurred here yesterday. However, most of them are only asking one thing, that if only succor can come their way. Of course, they are counting their losses. Let's look around and see one or two persons who can talk to us. We spoke to some of them earlier on. Some of them refused to talk to us. They are still lamenting and crying that what will they say? All their life savings has gone. We spoke to one man earlier on who told us that this kind of incident happened over 22 years ago at this same particular spot, precisely the other side. That this was the building that it happened 22 years ago. That the tanker fell on him and he damaged his leg. Of course, we saw him with a walking stick. So we tried to approach him again to talk to us live. His people were not quite happy. They are very, very angry that the man can't talk to us. But however, we'll speak to other people who are likely going to share to us what they think about what has happened so far. Just give me a few minutes. We have one of them who is going to talk to us. Okay, hello, sir. Hello, sir. Okay, let's meet your name and your designation.
Good morning. My name is Johnson. I live in Agbo. what happened yesterday was very, in fact, I don't even know what to call the thing. Because the accident that happened yesterday has even made everybody lost hope in Agbo. Look at, if you can see, all the buildings was burnt down. From, in fact, this woman has money inside the shop, but the money has got vanished. Yesterday, when the thing happened, I was opportune to see it earlier because people that saw the trailer that is coming. They said the trailer was blowing on. It loose brake was blowing on from down to that is coming. But there is a car that's make the thing happen. The car just came out from another place, and the trailer hits the car. That's where the trailer that tumbled, and it catch fired. Life was lost. 4 lives was lost. A female and 3 male was lost. In fact, the cars was burnt and shops. Then the new Access Bank, it affected the new Access Bank in this building. Also, the plaza that's beside the new Access Bank, it affected part of the plaza, not much of the plaza. We bless God that it happens on Sunday, not on Monday, where everybody will be in store. If it is Monday, there will be more casualty. In fact, the thing that we will not be saying all this. I will also thank God that it is not more than this. We should always be grateful. That is it. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have another respondent who will talk to us. Okay, please introduce yourself.
First of all, my name is Ambassador Famous Abaye. By the grace of God, I'm the current task force chairman on environment sanitation of this great local government, the Katsina local government. It was a very tragedy and a black Sunday to all residents of Eka land, not just Agbo as a place. That this negative and painful incident of fire explosion took place very close, let me say, front of Access Bank, First Bank, that took almost, about 4 or 5 buildings down to the river area. According to the earlier report from witnesses, that the tanker lost the brake, and unfortunately for him, a vehicle or a motorcycle ran into the vehicle, the trailer, when he was descending down. That was what led to the accident that cost most of the shops that worth millions of naira bonds, cars, most especially life. About 3 or 4 lives got bonds and they lost their life. But above it all, God knows why, and we'll give glory to God that it's not even on Monday or working days that most persons would have been around that have taken more than those lives. And we pray that God, in His own infinite mercy, will accept their soul and have mercy upon their soul. So we pray that government will take upon the property and one of the things that got lost over this area. So the fire service did their own best, and most especially the indigenous sons of this land did their own best to stop the fire and to save lives.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have another respondent here who will talk to us about the inferno as well. Please, let's give your name and address.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Mr. Destiny Abu. So, confirmed to the incident that happened yesterday. So, it's very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate, because we haven't seen this kind of a thing. Although it's long, we experienced this kind of a thing in the past. But having it yesterday, everybody was so surprising. Well, we pray that the government will look into this matter, that because of the people who have lost their lives, there's nothing to do about that. But the properties, that's waste. We pray that government will look into that and control the traffic in Agbo here. Mostly, some persons drive reckless. So we don't know how, I wasn't there when this incident happened. So I'm not happy to hear about this. Seen everywhere, the building, properties, goods are destroyed by fire. So even human beings. So we pray that such a thing will not happen in our locality again. So we still pray that such a thing will not happen and the government will intervene by helping them.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Currently where we are is the seems to be the economic center here in Agbo. And this place has a lot of shops that run from this particular end, about 3 to 4 poles. Behind me, you can still see some of the, you can see the fire still coming out. And it means that this fire has been raging since yesterday till now. And property in these various buildings runs into billions of naira. Earlier on, cameraman, please come closer. I don't know if you can see the man who is being surrounded here. People are trying to console him over what he has lost. And the man actually said that all the money he has been selling since Onisha closed down, that he kept them inside the building. And very unfortunate that everything he has saved within the Yuletide season has gone. So very unfortunate here in Agbo, Ikasat local government area of Delta State, and the people are still counting their losses when succor comes to these people at the moment. Hopefully, as the deputy governor will arrive, probably they will smile, or probably they might be hoping on God.
It's really a painful update that you're giving us there. Our hearts bleed for the people of Ikanot local government area to see the loss, the massive loss of lives, loss of properties that they're having to deal with. You mentioned earlier that they are waiting the arrival of the deputy governor to come and inspect the place. What is expected when the deputy governor comes? Also, how quickly would you say that response was to the explosion? Were there quick, response by the fire services in Delta State? How quickly would you say that occurred?
Yes, from what we gathered so far, that the firefighters, they arrived very early. But however, you know quite well that Agbo, for instance, their roads are not that wide enough. So obviously you have a lot of motorbikes, a lot of them. Cameraman, please come forward. You can see a lot of motorbikes flying on this particular road. This is how it looks like on a normal day. On the roads of Agbo, you see a lot of modern vehicles. So obviously, probably that might actually cause some of the delays that the firefighters experience. But from what the people said, that thank God that the firefighters were able to come on time and they were able to salvage the situation. Otherwise, if it to be a normal working day, obviously it means that a lot of persons would have gone. So it could be said that the firefighters and other security agencies were able to arrive on time. But don't forget too that this diesel, of course, is very inflammable. So within a second, it have caused its damage. But thank God that the buildings we saw here caused pretty much, but you can't compare when there was no firefighters who have come on time to salvage the situation.
Thank you so much for bringing us update. We'll continue to follow up with this story. Really sad, and our thoughts and our prayers are with the people of Agbo, Ikanot local government area. Let's now go on a very quick break and bring you the newspaper headlines as quickly as we can to see what the front pages of the papers are saying.
And now let's take you through the newspapers this morning, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria. We kick off this morning with the Punch newspapers. It says here, new virus, federal government tightens monitoring to quarantine China passengers.
Oh, not again.
Experts demand proactive steps as new virus surges in China ravages children. Also, LP can win 2027 poll without merger, says the party. I'm not sure who in the party is saying that, but it would be nice to read that story. Tinubu taking Enugu on a path of 21st century development, commissions multiple development projects. And also APC dismisses PDP's threats to unseat Oyebanji in 2026. Family solicits funds to bury Nigerian student in the UK. 18 policemen present when hoodlums attacked me, says Oshun Monarch. I think that's the final story I'm taking this morning. Okay, well, the story we just spoke about, 5-year dead, banks burnt in Delta tanker explosion. Those are the lead stories on the Punch newspapers this morning.
All right, and now to this day newspaper. PDP, with cry of hunger, poverty, we can produce president, more governors in 2027. Diri urges colleagues to strengthen party, serve Nigeria. Mohammed reiterates commitment to party's vision, contribute to national development. Several APC members joined party in Bauchi. Oyedele says it's untrue. Tax committee didn't consult. Governors refused to meet with us. Says NGF cancelled scheduled meetings 4 times. Discloses committee met with over 120 ulamas. League of Northern Democrats. Insists panel still willing to meet with all stakeholders. Insinuates those opposed to bills may have ulterior motives. In Enugu, Tinubu says Nigeria must encourage more private sector players into politics and Lord Mba's policies. I think it's a bit scary to see what's happening now, the potential of a new virus coming, ravaging China. I think it's called HMPV, and what this might mean for the economy. Of course, the conspiracy theorists have started to talk again. They're linking that to Donald Trump's being sworn in January. There are a lot of conspiracies that have kicked, that have come into effect. However, I do also think that it's important for Nigeria to also be on the lookout and start to think of ways, because now where we are fighting hunger, we can't fight a virus at this time. Yep. So if there's a possibility that that virus can get into Nigeria, maybe now is the time to start thinking of ways to spot it, ways to ensure that we have stronger border controls. We were quite lucky with COVID. First of all, I think we're lucky with Ebola. We will never forget the sacrifice of Dr. Adadevo and how she put herself in harm's way to ensure that that virus did not spread in Nigeria. And eventually, Ebola was contained. Patrick Sawyer unfortunately died. She as well, unfortunately, lost her life. And then the COVID era came. We were hit, but not as hard hit as many countries were, because we're very proactive. So we shouldn't be a reactive country to wait for when this virus comes into Nigeria and then we start running around helter-skelter like headless chickens looking for a way out. I want to hope that the government, the Centers for Disease Control, they're on their feet and they're working, because it would be dire if at this time when Nigeria is currently dealing with insecurity, dealing with high levels of inflation, the highest we've seen in years, Nigeria did not experience this level of inflation, this level of poverty at the time when we're dealing with COVID. If we're to be hit by a virus, it will be fatal, very, very fatal.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think it should be played with. I'm not looking forward to those in the medical services taking advantage of Nigerians and selling, face masks for 10,000 naira for one.
Well, watch out, the face masks will soon be bought again, and then we're going
because once you can, sell some level of hysteria on a particular thing, people make money out of it. I'm hoping that they are proactive, as you've mentioned, the NCDC and everybody who should be. But mostly I'm hoping that it is not, it doesn't become a global virus. Whatever it is that is going on in China is, easily or properly curtailed. We're still seeking information for what exactly COVID was. It's where it started from. And whoever might have been responsible for COVID at that time, those questions are still left unanswered. People are still raising questions as to the vaccinations that people, Nigerians, in fact, the whole world had to take back then, the double vaccinations back then.
And the likelihood of people, exactly, there are people who are linking a number of fatalities, health complications now to the COVID jabs.
So there's many questions that are still left unanswered. I don't think the world is ready for it once again. It's going to create so much chaos. And unfortunately, I don't think that we've also learned enough about propaganda, and how easily it is spread across the world. I think the world is still, I think we're in a better place now in tackling propaganda, but it's still there's still so much work. And that's why you still see people being fooled with mass hysteria over, some of all these things. I feel like Western media and the damage that it has done over time, we should continue to tackle those things bit by bit, but hopefully it is not a worldwide virus.
For now, it still has similarities with COVID, with the shortness of breath, fever, nasal congestion. Is a respiratory infection that is oftentimes stronger during winter.
We still don't even know if masks actually work.
Well, for now, the only thing we can say is to Nigerians, because Nigerians often travel to China for business. So for those who are traveling to China, to Asian countries, please be careful, stay safe, wear a mask, use your sanitizer, and let's go back to the pre-COVID era, or the COVID era where we were properly prioritizing our sanitization.
Yeah, all right.
All right, let's share with you now, which way Nigeria, your favorite monologue that, oftentimes tugs at our hearts and holds our leaders to accountable. We'll bring that in a moment.
Yesterday, just as I expected, I came across one of Nigeria's biggest church leaders declaring 100 days of fasting for Nigeria. He said the country will soon experience peace after the church's 100-day fast is over. Now, it will be completely delusional to think that these people do not know that these prayers and fasting absolutely do nothing to improve Nigeria's trajectory. Yet every new year, we start with these prayers for a better Nigeria. So I'm asking this morning, what more do you want God to do for Nigeria? Because if nations across the world were to argue as to who is God's favorite child, Nigeria will undoubtedly be seen as one of God's favorite children. God gave Nigeria everything, way more natural and human resources than most countries on earth. Arable land, no natural disasters, fantastic weather for agriculture, some of the most brilliant minds on earth, a people with the skills to thrive in any part of the world that we have found. God didn't fail Nigeria one bit. Nigerians failed Nigeria. God gave this nation fertile soil, rivers that flow like veins through the heart of the nation. Nigeria is not lacking in blessings that we need to pray for. It is instead drowning in gross mismanagement. So again, what more do you want God to do for Nigeria as you fast for 100 days? What more is God meant to do for our country? To choose your leaders for you? To help you jail your corrupt politicians? To help you properly utilize all the vast resources that he has already blessed us with? There's almost no nation on the continent that should have been at par with Nigeria in development and quality of life for its citizens. If you think about just the wealth we should have from oil alone, take a look at what other countries have done with their own oil wealth. Think of what the Niger Delta alone could look like if we managed our resources better. So stop praying to God to bless Nigeria. He's already blessed us beyond what we could ever imagine. And again, when you are calling on God to save Nigeria, what exactly do you want him to do? God is not going to run your elections for you. He's not going to run your justice system for you. He will not create a better constitution for Nigeria. All of those things were left for you to handle as Nigerians, the best that you could. But instead, we've allowed the worst to rule over us. We've placed tribe and religion over prosperity as a nation. We've allowed the destruction of our institutions by our fellow citizens. God didn't abandon Nigeria. Nigerians instead have laid our bed this way, and so we must lay on it. Your National Assembly members are singing on your mandate, we shall stand. One state governor cannot read his own budget figures. One state governor paid his children's school fees till graduation and is currently being welcomed home like a hero. Where do you want God to step in here? If your governor can't read his own budget figures, what do you want God to do in a situation like that? Again, we have laid our bed. Let us lie on it. Good morning, Nigerians.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Now, you may have been one of those who celebrated the news that Nigeria's petroleum refinery in Port Harcourt and Warri has kick-started, regardless of the uncertainty surrounding its commencement. You may also have been one of those who celebrated the state of the Dangote refinery, the return of history in our schools, the local government autonomy, and the reshuffling of ministers. All of these have stood as credible points, scoring President Bola Tinubu's administration high amidst the unstable living conditions. However, leaders alike have raised their voices from different corners of the state, asking what it will take to repair a leaking economy, a poor security system, a questionable justice system, and corrupt practices that are pardoned and, of course, celebrated.
Now, let's look at the state of the nation as APC River State Gubernatorial candidate 2019 and 2023, Tonye Cole, joins us this morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome.
I think, let's start with, a broad view on where we are today. The current administration has run, almost 20 months now. And like I said, when we started the year, that they have 2 years to go. Whatever promises that they made, they have 2 years to go, just in case they are not re-elected. What would you say, is your rating? What rating would you give the current administration if you do like a 1 to 10?
I think it depends. In tough decisions and hard decisions being made, then I'll score the administration well in having to make tough decisions. In putting things in place to make those tough decisions palatable and acceptable, then I'll score them low there. So the tough decisions need to be made, absolutely. So probably on that score, maybe about 8 over 10. Did you put things in place prior to those tough decisions that would enable Nigerians, 1, understand, 2, be prepared for it, 3, adapt to it, and 4, know when they're going to come out of it, which is very important. Then on that, maybe 4 out of 10.
So does it mean that the tough decisions weren't properly thought through? Or
no, I wouldn't say that. I think they were poorly communicated. Whether they were thought through or not, you communicate it. If you don't communicate it well and you don't prepare people for what is to come and how it's to come, and then you haven't done well. So you might have prepared very, very well, but you communicated poorly, that's bad.
So by communicating poorly, I believe you're saying subsidy is gone. But there have been other policies that the government have, made in the course of the administration. Very recently, beyond the subsidy, there's unification of the exchange rate. Do you think that there are measures they should have put to prepare? Because these were the 2 major ones that defined this administration: removal of subsidy and unification of the exchange markets. Do you think that there could have been measures that could have been put in place to prepare Nigerians for these 2 policies?
So those 2 policies were necessary policies to come in. So again, were they tough and were they needed at the time? Absolutely. So I have nothing against those 2 policies coming in. But remember that both of them came in almost simultaneously together, which means that it was going to have an adverse effect, an immediate adverse effect on people. Now, there's a way you communicate that so that people are prepared for it. There is a way you must tell people that their way of life is going to change dramatically because of all of this. And I don't think the government did well in that communication. Did they think about it? Well, we'll see. And should they have done better? Could they have done better? Most definitely.
Okay, there's been speculations about the refineries. Many are rejoicing about the refineries having started, but there have been doubts, of course, for obvious reasons, as to these refineries being able to function to optimal capacity. Recently, we talked about the Warri refinery and how that has joined the conversation, even though there's still the argument about whether or not they are emitting PMS yet. So let's get your thoughts on your rating of the administration, looking at the refineries and where we've come. President Tinubu listed the price of petrol dropping to just above 900 naira as one of the gains of his administration. But some people say, you came in and met it at 185. Now it's 900. That's not a win. So from your perspective, is that a win?
So let's start with the fact that the refineries are finally up and running some 20 odd years or thereabouts afterwards. So that's a positive. Should the refineries be kept as part of government's asset that they continue to own money in, and the returns of those refineries are not commensurate to what has been paid into it? I think the next stage of those refineries is that the government has to be very, very certain that these refineries cannot continue being part of government assets. In other words, they need to be privatized. When should they be privatized? That's another discussion. But again, it needs to be done. So I'm one who believes that, okay, you brought it in, so you've given Nigerians that removed shame from their faces, saying that you're an oil-producing country, you have 4 refineries, and none of them are working. And I think that was very shameful for us. So it's important that you cross this boundary. But do you keep it going? No, I think you need to change.
All right. I mean, that's a very valid point that you've raised. I think that another point that we should look at, apart from the refineries being kickstarted, is the price of petrol. It's been reduced from over 1,000 to well over 1,000. Okay, maybe not well over 1,000, but over 1,000 to about 935. From where you stand, is that progress?
Okay.
So I think the only progress that can come as far as refineries and the price of refining is concerned will be from three aspects. One, competition. You need competition and very strong competition here. What does that mean? Apart from the Dangote refinery and let's assume government refinery, you also need another refinery of scale that is here that can bring competition down. If not, you're still going to have prices hovering where it is. Secondly, your local production and the cost of production of crude oil here in Nigeria must come down. We are one of the highest areas of producing crude, and you have to bring that down significantly. So it's not just about the petrol price. The raw materials of crude, thirdly, in fact, nearly 90% or more of all the components that you need in refineries and all of that are still imported. So you still have to pay foreign exchange to maintain refineries to draw it. That cannot continue, which means that you have to create a whole industry around supplies of the parts that are manufactured here that will bring the cost down. We're still a long way from being very, very competitive. So I think there's still work to be good. So a lot of work.
So I mean, earlier we spoke with Osita Okechukwu, and he was saying that with market forces and all the other things coming into play, that it's possible that we would drop to 500 naira per liter at some point. Is that possible? Is that likely?
Without competition, unlikely. If you're still importing all the parts that you have to import, again, unlikely. If you're going to open up importation of crude for a country like Nigeria, it's possible. But is that what you really want to do? Because the minute you do that, there's an adverse problem with your own production here. Once you begin to import cheap crude from places where the production is cheaper, it's more efficient and all of that, and you're bringing it in this way, then that has an adverse effect on your own production here. So what I would rather see is that we have a holistic approach as to how we want to get prices of petrol down. And that must include very, very local ingenuity in our movement.
Before we get, because let's still talk a little bit about the petrol conversation. There are people who say that Port Harcourt, Warri, both are not producing PMS, are not likely to produce PMS. What they're doing is blending. And it's not a sustainable plan. They don't have the catalytic reformer, I think that's the term, to produce PMS. And so what the government really is doing, is patting itself on the back, without necessarily achieving anything that can actually compete with the Dangote refinery and create this market forces that we're speaking of.
Okay, so I don't think anywhere I've read or that I know that the government has said that the rehabilitation of the refineries is 100% and they've gotten to the end of it, which means that it's a process.
Yeah.
And that process at the end of the day then means, if you've completed, means that every functional part of the refinery then comes into play. What you're seeing is the staged rehabilitation and the bringing up of the refinery step by step. And I think that's the process that must be taken into consideration at the same time. If the government was silent and waited until they finished everything before announcing, then some people would complain. So I think they're probably saying what they have to say to let people know that we're already in this process and we've started. Where people should hold government accountable now is that at what point, what are the phases where you are at? At what point are you going to finish everything? At what cost will it take to bring us to where it is? Because all of these things is maths, and you can actually calculate when it's going to finish, how much it's going to take, and when you finish all of this cost, has it been worth it? And that's really what we have to do.
Only time will tell. Like I said, they have 2 years until the end of the administration. Of course, developmental work doesn't stop. Administration after administration should continue. I also want you to speak on Peter Obi, couple of, I think a week ago or so in his press, briefing, mentioned certain things critical of the current administration. One of them, of course, was the need to cut down the cost of governance. But he also, basically painted a picture, where to him, President Bola Tinubu is not necessarily, in tune with the actual realities across the country. He then encouraged him to visit, every state in the country, spend 2 days there, visit National Hospital and all the federal medical centers across the country to at least have an actual, idea of what the situation is. Do you agree with that criticism? Do you think the current president, knows exactly what the reality is in every aspect of Nigeria?
Okay, so I don't know that anybody would ever get that absolute knowledge. What I would agree is that there is a need to get in touch with, connect with, meet with, and hear from everyday Nigerians every now and then. And so that's always an important point. The more we are able to speak to people who are going through their day-to-day also, and find out exactly what they're doing and how we can address it, the better. And so if the suggestion is that the president needs to visit, maybe he has it in mind or not, but if that's a suggestion, get to know what Nigerians are feeling so that you can make policies in that direction. And I'll say, yeah, that's a good suggestion. It's not a bad suggestion.
Now, as a son, do you think the president, has that level of awareness?
I don't know. I don't know whether he does or not. Truly, I don't know. But if he's saying, go and meet people, meet your people, get to know from your people what they're feeling, what they're going through, I don't see why he shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
All right. Also, your assessment, your general assessment of the president's performance so far, would you say that he's maybe lived up to the expectations of Nigerians, or would you say he's surpassed that, or he's maybe not done as much as Nigerians expect him to?
Say if it's true, the expectations, what Nigerians expected when he was coming in and all that, was that he was going to immediately turn around things. He was going to make Nigeria, exactly as Lagos is overnight. And I think that expectation was way, way, way overrated, too high for any human being. The process that we have to face with Nigeria is a long process. And I think there was a need at that point to tell what he could have done prior to becoming president would have been to temper those expectations. But I guess you want to win an election, so you allow people to create a huge expectation as to what you can achieve. And I suspect that has beaten him badly, because people did expect some miracle worker overnight. And so are people disappointed with what they have seen in the last 2 years? Definitely, you hear that all over the place. They're disappointed. Does he have to work extremely hard to ensure that the reforms that he has put in place in 2 years, people are going to start feeling a difference? He's got to do a human's job to get there. And if he can do that, then you're going to see expectations. If he cannot do that, people are going to be extremely disappointed.
Okay, we'll come back hopefully to speak on the federal level. I want us to narrow it down a little and come to Rivers State. Okay. You ran for office. You hoped to be the successor for Nyesom Wike. And I wonder if you're surprised at what you're seeing right now in the person of Nyesom Wike, who's the FCT minister, but in some measure, many would say that he's still holding on to his position as the former governor of Rivers State. Does it surprise you?
If you know the character that we're dealing with, no, that's not surprising. In other words, power and absolute power. If you study Machiavelli and the Prince, then you would understand what we're going through in Rivers State. It's a very Machiavellian territory, and power and absolute power is all that is at stake. Anyhow you get it, for whatever it's worth, including ensuring that you must destroy totally those who A, brought you into power, and B, those who possibly can take over power from you. It's a sad state of being, and I don't think it's one that is going to endear us much in Rivers State to the kind of development that we deserve. So I weep for it.
How much longer do you expect that it would happen? And I mean, the governor is currently, of course, given his passed his budget with I think 4 or 5 members of the House, even with a court ruling against it. Where do you see all of this leading?
Okay, so I don't know. That's a multifaceted question. I think the first aspect of it is that, is the battle going to end anytime soon? No. There's no end in sight as to where this is going to lead to, other than at the next elections. So we're going to see a situation in Rivers State where we're going to continue being in the news for this fight between the governor and the former minister, and the minister, former governor, until 2027 elections are done and dusted. So that's where we're going.
One of those who say that the president has a role to play in that Mr. Nyesom Wike is working for him. He appointed Nyesom Wike as his minister. So there are those who say that he should rein his appointee in. Do you think that the president has some blame here?
The president always has a say, always has a say in anything that concerns Nigeria. And I suspect that if the president wanted to, he could have, unless there are things that he's seeing that we don't see. If he thinks that it's not a problem, then he would not do anything about it. If he feels that it's not his business, that he should get involved in River State, then he wouldn't do anything about it. But if the president wanted to, he could have. So I can only assume that there's something that the president sees that we, from the outside, don't see, which is why the state of play continues.
Now, have you had any interactions with Wike-Fubara?
Once or twice, yes, at the beginning, immediately after he got sworn in. So the last interaction I've had with him would have been over a year.
Yeah. And would you have advised him to handle this different?
I did. Yes, I would have. There are different ways to handle it, but I think Sim right now has no option if he wants to survive and to continue the fight that he's on. He started that fight. There's no going back for him. And there's nothing he can do about it but continue.
So what should he have done differently?
So at the beginning of all of this, there are a couple of things that were at play. And the first aspect of it, which was at play, was definitely the fact that the way that he came in and all of that meant that he needed to find allies to help him negotiate a way out. And that was very, very important. And when I say negotiate a way out, there was obviously something that he was very uncomfortable with, which he has said, that he wasn't governing at all. Everything around him and everybody around him had been put there by the minister. And so he was just a puppet figure. And I don't think that's right. Frankly, that's not right at all. But that was the way, and that's what he saw. Which meant that having been put in that position, to get out of that position is a negotiated position, is the only way. At that point, you have to sit down and negotiate how you want to go about it. I don't know if he did that or if that wasn't done. But what happened when the president called him to a meeting was not a negotiation. That was a demand. He got there and they just placed a demand before him saying, this is what you must do. And I think that's where everything...
So he should have negotiated that peace accord.
Negotiated at that point.
All right. Do you also think, I mean, Wike-Fubara seems to have a lot of support from the Rivers people, as they seem to be totally against what they would refer to as godfatherism. But do you think that beyond how you think that he should have negotiated differently, there are those who say that his hands are not completely clean. They talk about the demolition of the assembly complex and said that even though, yes, the reports are that there were structural defects, but the circumstances, I mean, our correspondent was here and said they didn't even allow them pack out the ACs and the things that were there. So it would seem that that also looks orchestrated. So is he also without blame in this fight?
You know, unfortunately, if you get into a war situation, there's going to be all sorts of damage. And I'm not sure that anybody who is at war can claim that they have clean hands. The minute you have gone into a battle, you're going to do all sorts of things, some ethical, some unethical, and all of that. And only time will tell which one would work or not. So let's understand that River State is at war. And let's be clear about that. There's no easy way out. So it seems going to have to fight a war that would require that he goes all out and do what he has to do. We are seeing it already. I don't think he has much of a choice.
Okay. I think final question for me would just be, you know, something that we can maybe call you in a couple of months from now, 2 years from now, and see if your predictions are right. So
I'm a prophet.
What are your predictions as to how this government will be rated at the end of its first tenure?
I think anybody who's going to make hard decisions, and if you're going to make any kind of hard decision for people, then your rating from the people who are suffering the hard decisions will never be good. Okay, it's always a tough place. But as a leader, you know that it's not the ratings that you should be looking towards all the time. It's whether the outcome at the end of the day will be beneficial. I think the challenge that the government will have is that in the next year and a half, because we're not talking about 2 years, really talking about a year and a half, that would people feel anything tangible, right, for them to be able to say, okay, you know what, things are happening.
And do you think they will?
It's going to be tough, but it depends on whether they're able to communicate what to expect. And the minute people start seeing that you're communicating and they're getting what you said it would do, then maybe they will do.
And do you think that the tax reform bill in the north would also impact the chances of Mr. President at the next elections?
It's a very tough thing to fly in the north. It would be very tough.
Okay. There's so much that we really would have loved to cover. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
Already?
Yes, we have. Time flies really fast. Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. We look forward to having you again.
Always. Thank you.
All right, we've come to the end of the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. And for those who are back to work, welcome back. We hope that you've had a smooth ride and you didn't have to deal with a lot of traffic. Professor Ogbowa celebrating his birthday today. That's Osage's father. I want to say happy birthday to
I didn't forget.
Please go ahead.
So happy birthday to my father, Professor S.M. Ogbowa. He is 1 year older today. It was my niece's birthday yesterday as well. So happy birthday to both of you. We wish you very, very many more years. And lots of love from this side.
All right, and to our director, Mayowa, whose birthday it is today. Happy birthday, Mayowa, and thank you for all that you do to make our show fly. We'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you for your time with us. I am Olive, MOD.
And I am Osaogi Ogbowa. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Thank you, sir.